Hello, listeners, and welcome to the 63rd episode of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast. I'm Jacob, and on this episode, I'm joined by
Duncan,
Jack,
Jamie,
and John.
And we're glad to have you with us, listeners. We have quite a few questions to ask this show, and I don't know if we've got any answers to provide. But before we get there, we want to make sure that we take a moment to highlight that this show is brought to you in part by our Patreons over on patreon.com. Join us there for exclusive opportunities to chat with the cast and or some opportunities to get merch. Furthermore, the show has been brought to you by Elric's Hobbies, where you can use code heresyfaq for a discount at checkout, as well as Monument Hobbies, where you can use our affiliate link and the discount code heresyfaq for a discount at checkout. We want to really take the time.
And Elric's just got in the Secret Weapon Miniatures paint line, so I know a few people out there were waiting for those to come back. I know I have a couple projects that were waiting on it, and so definitely time to pick it up.
For sure. And a big shout of thanks to those who help sponsor this show and bring it to you every week. We are going to go over this week's pre-orders, as well as some potential ideas for FAQ to submit if you are continuing to campaign with us on that front. But before we get there, we know what time it is. It's hobby. Take us away, John.
Yeah, so my intern came back for a little bit of yard work and hobby work this week. And so I got to put him to work working on despruing some of my Mark III and Mark VI Marines with the drop of a couple of not official GW releases. Mournival Events has dropped their new Rights of War, and one of those is inductee related. And so I definitely want to be trying that out. So I'm going to be building more inductee. I'm going to be building some destroyers for myself. I've got those Ultramarine Nemesis destroyers to build and a bunch of other guys that I've been wanting to build. And I'm kind of lazy when it comes to clipping out multiple samey bodies beforehand. So I went ahead and conscripted him in that endeavor. While he was doing that, I was free to work on some more MDF. And so I built, it's called stadium seating from Cromlech. It's like stadium seating, or sorry, from TT Combat. Stadium seating / starship seating. And so I've got some very large MDF starships that have giant open holds, and I'll be lining those with seats, and then I can crash that starship into the side of a mountain or something and have a really cool detailed interior. And then tonight I'm working on, while we're casting, cleaning up the Adeptus Militarum or Guard new commander, that one that looks like Solar Macarius on a horse, because I think his base is really awesome, and so I picked up one of those so I can steal the dead Reaver that's on his base, and I'll be using that for probably a night base and some other stuff. And then I got a shipping notification today that a lot of my Black Friday and pre-Black Friday hobby purchases have been shipped. So I was able to take advantage of some of the sales that we get. Ammo had a big sale on books. They were 30 to 35% off, depending on when you went and what books you were looking at. So I picked up a bunch of, they call them hobby work boxes. So you get a bit of hobby stuff, like a sample size of every one of the things that's required to do this project. And then you get a book on how to do it. And those hobby work boxes are something like $70, $80. They were selling the books that come in those boxes that are multi-language for like $4 or $5 a piece. So I went ahead and picked up all the hobby workbox books, and then some of the other hobby books that I wanted to get through, like dioramas and things like that. So that was my Black Friday shopping, and then I got a shipping notification on the bases to finish up my militia. So I'll be working on those guys to get working on for Adepticon, should I be able to go if the job hunt is successful. Kind of all over the place this week is, that and cleaning up, but I got a pretty good bit done. I think I'm going to pass it on to Jeff.
Howdy, gentle viewers. I hope you had a wonderful holiday weekend. My holiday weekend consisted of starting Regal Dorn, the Primarch, not the tank, and then finishing Deckled all of the Imperial Fist, that decals, not stickers. I thought I had a joke there, but I really didn't.
The only joke there is you, Jack.
Yeah, it
Well,
is. That I am
hold
feeling
on.
joke.
I need to touch on something. So you say Rogaldorn, not like the tank, but like Lehman Russ has a tank named after him, and so does Malkador.
And it has a bottom on it too.
But like, there's no tank named after Rogaldorn, and if there were, like Jamie said, like surely it would be a complete tank. Like Dorn's not going to leave a gate unguarded, is he?
Yeah, there's no Dorn tank.
I got nothing for you.
Neither does Dorn for the bottom of his tank.
Oh, lordy. Look who's turning 40. Hey, Duncan, what have you been up to, dog?
Well, after I came back from work from Academy and did all that fun stuff, this last week obviously was Thanksgiving, so I didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of hobby stuff because I had work to get done that hadn't been done in 5 weeks. So I spent time doing work during the work days and doing a little bit of hobby stuff on Raldoron for the Blood Angels Army for Adepticon on the time off. Then I did Thanksgiving. Then I did Black Friday shopping. Took my daughter to her first Black Friday sale in person that she's ever gone to. And we went to our friendly local gaming store, the Rusty Scabbard in Lexington. And she was able to buy a giant dragon. And when I say a giant dragon, she collects like dragon miniatures for D&D and things like that. She has a dragon tattoo, all this stuff. She's really big into dragons. So she got a special edition D&D named giant red elder dragon thing. I don't know the name of it. I'm calling it Cletus.
Dave.
No, I'm calling it Cletus because it fits. So she got that. And then she got some D&D books. And I acquired a $1,200 cat bill. And
is Cletus pre-painted?
Yes, Cletus is pre-painted. And I acquired a $1,200 cat bill for a cat that while I was gone, the wife and daughter decided that they wanted to adopt this alley cat that has been hanging around our house while I was gone from Academy. And of course, it showed up hurt, and they let it in. Now the cat lives at my house in my sunroom. And of course, when I got home, I had to take the cat to the vet, get neutered, and to get its the hole in its head repaired. And of course, the cat has feline FIV, and there's surgery and testicular slicery and shots this and microchip that. And $1,200 worth of that later, I'm standing there with a 10-year-old alley cat that now lives in my house. So happy.
You were able to get the new tires for your truck, right?
No, I didn't get new tires for my truck. Although the best part is that on Saturday, a low pressure light came up, and it looks like one of my tires is showing some the metal ribs inside the tire are showing. So looks like I need some new tires on my truck.
That's worse than my wife's van.
I don't know what you guys are talking. They're just trying to show that extra traction in time for the winter season.
Yeah. So
built-in snow chains.
Really could use that $1,200 on some tires, but I guess I can't do that.
Did you order that special holiday warhound that you were planning on ordering?
Nope, didn't get to do that either. Got to spend it on an alley cat. Anyone want an alley cat? Jack, would you like a cat?
No.
Sounds like you really like it though.
Oh no, I think this cat's wonderful. It's very friendly. It's very nice and kind and alley cat like.
So you're saying a bobcat may be friendlier?
No. The cat is really actually very friendly to people, not me. So so it's what it is. I did for myself to get over the pain of not getting to put tires or another purchase I might want or a giant steak or anything really.
You bought a new computer for yourself.
No, I didn't do that either. I did acquire, however, 2 of the Legion Astartes battle groups. So I got 2 of those battle boxes. So now I got to figure out what I'm going to do with them. And that's all I've got done hobby-wise and cat-wise. So I'll throw it over to Jamie. Jamie. Oh, wait. No, that's not all I did. I finished Raldoron. I finished him last night.
Very, very cool looking.
Yep. Threw him up in the various chats. Kind of happy with how he looks. If only I had a light box, I could take better pictures of him. But I couldn't, get one because I had to pay all the stuff for an alley cat. Jamie, off to you.
So, was gifted another visit by Papa Nurgle. He's a very generous blessing. He loves giving gifts to my family, and the entire house is struggling with, I guess it's probably norovirus right now, so that's real fun. Anyways, hobby stuff. I got a bunch of paints from one of our sponsors, Monument Hobbies, and so I've got a bunch of paints that are due in I think tomorrow actually, and then I've been printing a bunch of stuff. I printed a micro-sized Vengeful Spirit model for actually several of them for John for terrain. I will be happy to see what he does with them. And then I've been painting Sarkarians, like actually getting down to painting them. One of them right now is actually got the decals on it, and I just need to finish weathering it and then varnish it up or seal it up, matte varnish. And then so I've got 2 more of those to paint up, and then I bought a pew pew from one of my other hobbies. Is the first one I've gotten in a little while, and so yeah, that's where a lot of my hobby funds went, was to the pew pew.
I was really wanting to get a new pew pew, but I didn't get a chance to.
There was actually some pretty good deals available.
I was actually kind of looking at the PSA dagger, but
yeah.
Oh well,
they had those really cheap here, by the way.
Yeah.
Welcome to the family, the Pew Pew Addict family, of the specific one you bought.
Yes, I guess I joined, as many people say, the master race. But so yeah. Anyways, that'll be fun when my wife finds out about that. So she had to work this weekend when I went and got it, but who cares? Anyways, so but hobby wise, yeah, printing a bunch of stuff, working on models like I should be. Didn't play any video games, and got some paints, and I've been looking at stuff for 3D printers too as well, and trying to help people with 3D printers. So is that everybody, or is Jacob not gone yet? Jacob.
I have not gone. Most of my time in the last week or two has been dedicated to continuing to work on my Arasakas for Cyberpunk Red Combat Zone. I've been assembling a lot of Ironwind Metals Battletech stuff, to the point where I finally completed assembly on all of my recent acquisitions from my trip to the plant. And then tacking together some Star Wars Legion. A buddy of ours has really been trying to push forward with the more competitive or tournament scene of that game. And so I flipped my Rebels, I want to say earlier this year, but I still have my clones. And just kind of hoping that in addition to some other hobby goals, that I can commit to getting that army done. Much like Matt Cain was extremely generous in demonstrating some quick and easy ways to get nice looking black schemes on the table, I would say that the same pretty readily applies to his white schemes as well. Again, through combination of what he's done, what other channels like Cult of Paint have done, and even a couple tips and tricks from Duncan Rhodes. He's done a couple how to paint Clone Trooper and Stormtrooper videos that have been a pretty big boon. So that's been the most of my hobby progress, honestly.
Sounds like you, like all of us, have been somewhat busy.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're all doing an end of year crunch on hobby stuff.
Yeah, well, hopefully not staying in a crunch. Hopefully getting myself to a point where I can make regular week-over-week hobby progress. And between you guys and a couple other locals who can actually come to my home and harass me, I'm really hoping to be able to keep the momentum up. So.
Awesome. I have one thing I want to ask you.
Yeah.
How's Alex doing with his painting?
He's doing really well. So he just got, he did one mech about all on his own since the last time we spoke. He did tidy it up the last time he and I got together, and that's where I hit the other 5 or 6 models in the Arasaka gang. So he is, let's see, two mechs that are still here because they were drying when he left. The tank he did earlier in the month, and then plus or minus the Irby he's painted. By definition, he has in fact painted 4 BattleTech items in the month of November.
I don't care what he's painted. I'm just really proud of him for finally getting onto the paint wagon.
Yeah. It's been pretty cool to see. To see even just the progress he's made on the couple models he's put together has been really inspiring. I'm feeling great for the guy.
That is awesome. I'm super stoked for him coming into painting and stuff.
Yeah, and it's to the point where he's starting to look at me and talk about a longer term project for his Heresy army. For those of you unaware, he has used various commissioned paint services for that army over the years, and they have completed the army in different batches. And admittedly, like, the armor colors aren't too badly off, where you do have some variants, lighter color and darker color models. But ultimately, he feels like the biggest thing wrecking cohesion for that army visually is the fact that the basing is pretty disparate. Some models are all the way to like a Martian Iron Earth basing, and others are kind of the hard opposite direction where they're this very pale sand tone. And so he's trying to evaluate and assess, especially as some of those have broken or chipped, or the basing has almost come up like carpet on a couple of them, which has been super wild to watch. Probably a side effect of him leaving the army in the car, and what do I want to say, accelerant on CA glue.
Yep.
So that's caused those to go the way those have gone, and he's really eyeing, especially once he feels like he's got his 12 to 20 BattleTech models that he expects to play with most regularly. Once he's got those off the ground, he's thinking he's going to circle back and maybe talk about rebasing the whole of his army, especially if that comes with finally delivering on a display board for it. But remains to be
My
seen.
wife had the same issue with the base thing when some of her models from ReaperCon. It's like they just started. It's like it just rolled up like carpet. It was really weird. And yeah, it's mainly CA glue and accelerator, and not quite adhering to the weird texture that GW puts on their bases.
Oh, knock-on effect as we talk CA glue and accelerant. Huge shout to my buddy Crackerbox, who is part of the CSO team for BattleTech. He strongly suggested, as I was assembling some of my metal models, switching over to, I want to say it's the green cap gel Gorilla Glue. I'd been on the blue cap, just regular super glue for many years, but I found that especially for metals or for models where you don't always have the greatest contact point, that gel still does the same thing where it basically disappears as part of the drying process, but it gives a much more viscous consistency that gave parts a lot more to bite as part of mounting, and that was a tremendous asset. So strong recommend there. If you have models that are causing you to cry, consider gel superglue. Any last notes before we talk about what is approximately our only pre-order of note? Oh, I guess we do have one other news item. And that is Heresy Thursday. It was Thanksgiving here in the colonies, but over in England, across the pond, they decided to drop a Thousand Sons librarian/sorcerer model, Heresy era, as part of their Heresy Thursday. Really gorgeous model. Hugely impressed with seeing what they were capable of doing. It's maybe a little odd with how like it's got that like V-neck on the power armor where it's kind of all framed in by the big wings extending from the scarab, and then the 2 scrolls over the shoulders, and kind of a raised collar. But definitely evocative of how the Legion looks in 40k without going full in on like the curling filigree to kind of evoke that chaotic feel.
Yeah, it was a gorgeous model. And
Yeah,
I hate Thousand Suns.
yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Thousand Suns either, but I like that a lot.
The past 2 models that they've released, the Stormcaller, or not released, shown, the Stormcaller and that Thousand Sun have both been really good.
I'll go ahead and I'll throw it in there on behalf of our Space Wolf friends, the Praetor that we got for Space Wolves. In contrast to where we've felt the regular Librarian and the Esoterist, and admittedly the Esoterist, I would say we were a little more positive on. A number of these generic Legion models have been a little plain for us. And that did have us a little bit worried or kind of second-guessing what the nature of HQ quality sculpts was going to be going forward. It's really, really nice to be able to see Legion-specific sculpts that feel like they've earned it, that feel like they deserve it, and they don't have to be named character sculpts like we saw with the Sons of Horus and Imperial Fist characters that got released with Siege.
Yeah,
and it's not 75 of the same Legion symbol on every single surface like it was with some of the Ultramarines.
I really like the champion for the Loyalist champion and the Heresy champion, or the Heretic champion, and I still need to get the Heretic champion here in a little bit. But yeah, pretty much all the Legion specifics that have come out, spot on.
Yeah, past that, we already have turned around from a first look to coming up for pre-orders on the Mark 6 Assault Squad. We here at the show are a little uneasy, shall we say, that there's the potential that 10-man squad is going to be running you, hopefully not $80, which would track with the $80 that we are currently paying for 20 Tactical Marines. I really, I understand that we can't do 10 Astartes for $40, but I would really hope that we could move this kit closer to $50 or $60, understanding that the backpacks are large, but they shouldn't be like full-on take up as much space on a sprue as another Astartes large.
You have the backpack, and then you have the chest blast plate too.
That's correct.
Yeah, and there's new pouches and things like that, looks like, on there too.
Yeah, I think those are all really valid. I do still hope that this shows up closer to 60 than it does to 80, if for no other reason than I don't want to see Assault Marines continue to be priced out of the game, which unfortunately would track in a way that I've seen Assault Marines basically pointed out or costed out of not just Heresy, but out of 40k for just about as long as I've been playing. It's a really iconic look, and even though the idea of this breastplate that kind of bolts over the chest and how the backpacks are kind of proportioned, or even the individual poses of some of these guys, I soft floated that I think this squad looks exponentially better if you can get your hands on some 40k jump stands for their various Assault Marine or Gravis, whatever they are, that have jump packs in 40k. If you got some of those stands and found a way to mount them to these guys,
the little hook one,
that kind of hook or socket under the back of the jump pack, I think that this squad looks exponentially better, because then you have a little bit of control over the tilt of their torso. And some of these are seemingly posed as if they're designed to be bearing down on someone, which is fine in its own right, but then when you base that guy on the same vertical, like Z-axis height of a normal base that ordinary Astartes are going to be on, it'll look a little awkward once you mash them into close combat. But then again, the idea may be that once they're in close combat, you're not going to be able to get that close up on them to be able to look at them anyway. So that would just be nitpicking. But
I'm
Yeah,
good.
we
for
didn't
this.
discuss
Sorry.
these when. Yeah, I was gonna say we didn't discuss these when they came out. I think it's parts of it are a little odd, but for the most part, the big blank open canvas that these guys come with is really cool. They kind of brought that out with the Mark IIIs, where you
Yep.
really have that area for going wild with decals or whatever. And I think that there could be some really cool stuff going on there. I think the pistols are a little weird personally, but and the jump packs themselves are a little oddball. But other than that, I do like a lot of it.
I
Sorry,
will
Jamie, go
say
ahead.
that they are. I know they come with what is it? Not the boarding shields, but just the smaller
Combat
shield. With the extra plate on it on the front of those Mark Sixes, they're more beefy looking and appropriate to have boarding shields on them, kind of like the Mark IIs and IIIs. Like when you see boarding Marines. So
Yeah.
That would be kind of hot, putting a big shield on, especially those guys that are leaning forward like they're kind of advancing into the fire.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm.
Now you're making me spend money.
I like the look of them. I just wish they weren't Mark 6.
Yeah. I mean,
I look
think
forward
we've
to the
all-
Mark. I look forward to the Mark 3 or 4 or 5 or 2 releases.
I think we all just talked about this earlier, but yeah, I think we were all basically we're hoping for anything but Mark 6, and yeah, we all knew it was going to probably be Mark 6 anyways, just because that's what they're pushing right now.
I mean, it's not like you can't take the Asari's Battle Box that has the various mark in it, or that has the newer mark in it, not the Mark 6, and grab one of these sets and slap them on there, because they're all pretty much the same monopose style.
Right.
It's just different weapons and arms, and you can slap the Van Brace forearm covers from the Mark IIIs right on these guys, and bam, there you go. You got some Mark III Jump Marines.
Yep. I mean the threes, yeah, they use the same style arms as the Mark 6s as well. So.
Yep.
All right.
Oh, the other did we
go ahead.
talk about the decals?
No, we
Woohoo,
have not mentioned
decals.
the decals.
Yeah, John's favorite thing, man.
John, tell us what we got.
Oh, we are getting two very sexy sheets of decals. We get a squad-based one, which has both black, white, hollow filled in. So black filled in, black hollow, white filled in, white hollow, for 4 different tacticals, 4 different Devastator, 4 different Assault Marines, 4 different Destroyer. Those were really pretty on hard to get on other sheets of decals. You only got like 10 per $35 sheet from Forge World. You get an Elite one, Headquarters Skull. It looks like a Command Squad ones. And you get 2 sets of those almost. The second set, you've also got some of the old Rogue Trader era battle honors that you saw on Van Braces, Unification tattoos. And it just goes on and on for the squads. And then even better, those are the full-size shoulder pad ones. You also get little knee pad sized ones.
Yeah.
That has always been the biggest pain for me, is because I like putting little decals everywhere. The little knee pad sized decals is really cool. And those are just for squad members. And then you get a giant size set for vehicles. These look to be, it looks like you get the size for the Rhino top doors, and you also get the size for Rhino's side doors. And these come in the same, but they don't come in the filled in and hollow, which you get both black and white on those. You get 2 different sizes, and then as well as numbers, both Roman numerals as well as the GW kind of line through it font that they do for everything. There's a bunch of little names on there as well, and a ton of little black and white skulls to put everywhere as for kill markings and things like that. It's like they filled in every spare quarter inch on the
With the kill markings.
decal sheet
Yeah.
with tiny skulls. And some of the skulls are the size of the eye sockets on the Marine shoulder pad skulls. So they go really down in size. As well as Aquila's and Eyes of Horus that are both split and whole. So I really hope these decal sheets aren't as expensive as the existing Legion ones. I don't see why they should be, because they're not colored. But these are gorgeous sheets that you can do.
I think
the infantry sheet.
The infantry sheet, I think, also had it looked like Medicaid symbols on it too.
Medicaid, it's got Mechanicum as well, and Librarian symbols. Yep. There are 1,280 decal sheets on the troop one and 510 on the vehicle sheet, and not a single Legion specific decal on any of them.
Well,
That is
the
cool.
other than the Eye of Horus, but I guess that can
Yeah.
be used for all the traders. So.
Yep, that's for your side.
Yeah.
But that is really cool. These
Yep.
are really awesome sheets. I will probably be picking up a few of these.
Very exciting.
Anybody else got thoughts on decals?
I probably haven't heard you this enthused about a decal sheet. And
He liked the new night
Since
ones.
the last decal sheet?
Since the last decal sheet, yeah.
I mean, it's John. What's the record for number of decals you've put on something before?
So my planes for my militia had 95. I think one of my tanks had close to 100. So,
Yeah.
God, look what I got.
Oh yeah, that's the new Lancer sheet.
Yep.
Yeah, I've and I think infantry wise, I think probably the worst one was the Nullificator Lord. I think I put 25 to 30 on him because they're so small. I stacked them.
I'm John. No matter what I can ever say about your hobby, you, sir, not only are a machine, but you're a bit of a lunatic with the decals. And I say that you would use an entire sheet of decals on one tactical marine if you could.
I just don't like painting freehand.
I mean, that's
I
fair.
don't see a reason to paint freehand when someone's already been nice enough to print it for me. So whenever I want tiny symbols or I want like the nullificator specifically, I think each nullificator terminator had 15 decals at least because I wanted the little symbols on there that are, esoteric weirdness or witchy poo crap all over their shins and everything. And so I was like, well, I don't want to freehand all of that. I'll just get the Calth decal sheets that I used up all the Ultramarine parts. I'll steal the Word Bearer Witchy Poo decals and slather them all over those guys. And you start combining them, pushing them close together. It adds up.
No. I mean, I'm just always impressed when you tell me how many decals are on a model and you start pointing them out, and I'm like, oh God, this hurts my soul. You know what else hurts my soul?
What?
The lack of a fact.
I think at this point, FAQ just stands for frequently asking questions. So
frequently avoiding questions from GW.
For sure there too. We brought this topic up, I believe it was on our last show, with regard to us finding out that Games Workshop felt kind of taken aback that we would ask for an FAQ or a status of an FAQ for Heresy. So we've spent the last 2 to 3 weeks at this rate putting feelers out to whatever communities we've been able to reach out to have them feed back into us what questions they have about the game that they feel like aren't answered by the game so that we can try to compile them. We also, with this, made a really, really specific, deliberate point that we didn't want to include or talk any errata at this point. We aren't game developers. We don't make games. We can ask questions of the people who make games, and we're within our bounds to do so, but the action or the thought of balance is not something that we wanted to talk about or target as part of this show. On other shows, that might be different, but right now we've just got inconsistencies or incomplete information about the game that we're trying to get addressed. John?
Yeah, and let me kind of expand on that a little bit, because everyone's like, "Oh, what's the difference between an FAQ and an errata?" And so the biggest thing that I can think of, and literally every group has come up with this discussion, armatures. Right now, as it's written, armatures are not weak to haywire and are not weak to a bunch of things that dreadnoughts and other things are. And so the errata would be armature changing the rules to say armatures are weak or become weak to haywire or affected by that. That would be an errata. An FAQ would be something like drop pods in the Rite of War, the Special K drop pods not being able to be taken in the Rite of War for drop pods, because it is a drop pod itself. So the question becomes, hey, it says it's a drop pod, but can I take it in that specific Rite of War?
It's not explicit. It's like, yeah, but that is the Special K is not explicitly said that this is an option, whereas it will say a drop pod, a Dreadclaw, or a Dreadclaw. Or I mean, not Dreadclaw, or a Dreadnought drop pod, or something like that.
And I think it's worth highlighting that some of these, a lot of play groups are navigating around, not with an FAQ, but by making what they believe to be a reasonable inference, and the inconsistency in sometimes how things are written or worded with regard to a difference between what is implicitly allowed or explicitly allowed is what causes us to come forward with these kinds of questions. If everything was written with the same syntax, we may not necessarily have some of these questions. But until we get to the point where, for lack of a better term, the typist team that tends to produce content for Magic the Gathering, until they start typing up Games Workshop rulebooks, we will almost always be coming back with some amount of these questions. But if we don't ask, we will never get an answer. Anybody else? Any sort of cursory notes before we start sinking into these?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it, though, is the reason we have these FAQ questions and that's the reason that a lot of people have house rules. House rules start from a place of, well, okay, we need to figure out what this does, and then usually evolve into, well, since we're already doing that, let's continue going and change these rules or add these units or do this and do that. And that's kind of not, you end up with different play groups running different things and allowing different things or changing different rules, and it just slowly starts to crumble the game from without. On to Duncan.
I was going to say, some of this kind of started when Games Workshop put up a thing, and I actually posted a troll post or a troll reply saying, hey, while you're working on LI and stalling us on this, can we get a FAQ for Heresy? And they replied, what?
What?
Well, sure, we can get you a FAQ. We contact this email address, and we'll consider it when we're working on that. And so I did. And I sent it out to a whole bunch of people. And I have honestly not gotten a lot of responses. I will say, huge shout out to Derek over at RFI, because we have an 11-page thing of questions, and most of these questions come from Derek.
Yeah, I was going to say, not a lot of response, has an 11-page document that we're going to talk through.
I know Blake here locally posted a bunch into our Facebook page.
Yes, we have had several put into our own our Facebook and into our own Discord. But there's not been a lot of other response.
Right.
So, and the 11-page document that we're all looking at, that does not include the stuff that's been posted into our Facebook or into our Discord. So once we get done with those, or the document, we'll click over to that and start going through those. Hopefully, there's not too much of a duplication.
So, starting in from the top of the document as it is presented to me, with regard to reactions in the movement phase. If a player has multiple reactions available in the movement phase, and generally this could just kind of be brought overall, if a player has multiple reactions in a given phase and their opponent triggers multiple reactions at once, so in this example it was an opponent moves one unit within 12 inches and line of sight of multiple units. In the assault phase, if my opponent commits to a disordered charge against multiple units, can each eligible unit react, or can only one unit react? How's the timing on these things shake out? Further, with movement reactions, when vehicles advance or withdraw, are you permitted to pivot 90 degrees in any direction, or do you have to attempt to face the unit that triggers the reaction? If a vehicle advances, is it allowed to ram? If so, is it only allowed to ram up to 6 inches? Or can you ram another unit other than the one that triggered the reaction? So if you have 3 squads in your way, are you allowed to ram all of them? Or can you only ram the one that set the reaction off? Is a Primarch model in a challenge still able to allocate wounds to any model they are engaged with, or are they subject to challenge rules? Typically, something like that could be covered under most specific, but I believe, I could be wrong on this, I believe the Primarch unit type is in the core rules. If it was in the Legions of Astartes rules, then Primarchs get real crazy because they basically ignore challenges. But as long as they're in the same rule book as challenges, then they've got to play by normal challenge rules. Artillery. If a player has artillery models missing wounds, for example, from being previously attacked by models with the sniper rule, would any wounds the squad suffers be forced to be allocated to the artillery models rather than crew? With regard to characters and wound allocation, when allocating wounds, can you allocate wounds to a character, then change the model to which you allocate wounds from a single wound pool before that character model dies? An example, after a multi-wound character fails a saving throw and suffers a wound, changing the model to which to allocate the remaining wounds in the same wound pool before the character loses their last wound. With regard to psychic powers, many psychic powers can be used instead of making a shooting attack. Can these be used when allowed to make a shooting attack as per, say, a reaction? Or, if a model is able to make multiple shooting attacks, does using a psychic power in this way replace one shooting attack or all shooting attacks? Would a model with firing protocols be able to use the same psychic power multiple times, or simply multiple different psychic powers? With regard to transport restrictions, jump pack and jet packs prevent a model from being embarked on a transport without the flyer type, is listed as an example of a potential restriction. However, such restrictions are not present on Warhawk jump packs in both Liber Astartes and Liber Hereticus, and this restriction isn't mentioned anywhere else. Does this restriction apply universally to any war gear referred to as a jump pack or jet pack? Would this affect models like Sanguinius or Corvus Corax with similar war gear? Further regarding embarked units, what rules and effects can apply to models embarked on a transport? Are embarked models considered to be within range of an effect while embarked on a transport, or building within range since you measure, quote, to or from the vehicle's hull, end quote? If a unit has a special rule or piece of war gear that has an effect with a certain range, and that model is embarked, is that rule in effect unless it specifies the model cannot be embarked, such as a Nuncio Vox, or is the rule not in effect unless the rule specifies otherwise, like Marduk Cedrus, Ancient of War ability? Regarding Knights and Titans, would a Titan with the fast subtype be able to move flat out despite moving like infantry? Regarding Flyers and the Hover subtype, if a flyer is hovering and being treated as a skimmer, is it no longer being treated as a flyer? Regarding the defense line, how does the blast shield rule work when the target unit contains models that would, and models that would not, receive a cover save? Do you roll to wound a unit only if the majority of models would claim a cover save from the fortification? Regarding Armorbane, does Armorbane affect armigers or shackled artificia? Regarding Assault Vehicle, can a unit declare a charge after disembarking from an assault vehicle that arrives from a deep strike assault or flanking assault? Regarding Battlesmith, can Battlesmith repair armigers or shackled artificia? Regarding Graviton Pulse and Lingering Death, if a model attempts to move while covered by overlapping templates from Graviton Pulse or Lingering Death, do they take 2 dangerous terrain tests, or 1? Regarding Guided Fire, would a model receive a cover save from being more than 25% obscured while taking wounds from a weapon with Guided Fire? Regarding Haywire and Monster Hunter, do these affect Armiger and Shackled Artificia? Do they affect, in the case of Monster Hunter, do they affect Gargants? Pinning. If a unit is pinned on their own turn due to reactions, for example, is it intended to be pinned until the end of that player's following turn? Regarding Deep Strike Assault, the units assigned to Deep Strike Assault interplay in a turn in which the reserve roll is successful and the controlling player chooses to bring them into play. What happens if the controlling player chooses not to bring them into play? Regarding performing a Deep Strike Assault, what happens if all units in a Deep Strike Assault are not able to deploy within range of the first deployed unit without being within 1 inch of an enemy model, table edge, or impassable terrain? That's another one of those inconsistencies. Sometimes models which cannot be deployed are destroyed. Other times, models which cannot be deployed simply get kicked into ongoing reserves and show up on a later turn. Regarding flanking assault, units assigned to a flanking assault interplay on the turn in which they pass, and the controlling player chooses to bring them in. What happens if the controlling player chooses not to bring them in? Now we start getting just a little more granular. Those were approximately just focused on big rulebook questions.
You want me to take the next batch?
Yes, please, sir.
Certainly. Rights of War, Angel's Wrath, and Skyhunter Phalanx. Can a vehicle model without the flyer subtype be included in a detachment using these Rights of War if it can begin the game embarked upon a flyer transport with the auxiliary vehicle bay special rule? If a unit is able to take a Rhino as a dedicated transport, if its numbers are no more than 10 models, would it be able to take a Storm Eagle as a dedicated transport if that unit contains no more than 10? Drop Pod Assault. Can models in a detachment using this Right of War be assigned to an area denial drop? Underworld Assault. Can vehicles with the flyer subtype be included in a detachment using this Right of War? Would they be allowed to be placed in reserve, or would they be able to start in a controlling player's deployment zone? Brethren of Iron. Would any battle automata taken as a detachment using this right still be considered to be part of the Mechanicum faction, or would they be the same faction as the detachment using this Right of War? Fury of the Ancients. Does this Right of War affect Legion Castaferum Dreadnought Talons? Legion Consuls. Legion Esoteris, Breaching the Veil. Could a Ruinstorm Demon unit from a separate attachment, i.e. Kabanda, be deployed from the Warp Rift marker? Special rules, Detonation. Does Detonation affect Armigers and Shackled Artificia models? Neutron Flux. Does Neutron Flux affect Shackled Artificia models? Talons of the Legion. When using the Combat Air Patrol reaction, would a model making a shooting attack as part of this reaction have to fire snapshots at a flyer that triggered the reaction? Could a player using the Combat Air Patrol reaction in response to a flyer deploying as part of this Deep Strike Assault? Could a player use the Combat Air Patrol reaction in response to a flyer deploying as part of a Deep Strike Assault or Drop Pod Assault? Would a flyer deployed hovering instead of zooming be an eligible trigger for the Combat Air Patrol reaction? Transport Bay. Can a model with the Transport Bay special rule transport Shackled Artificia models? Crack Grenades. Can crack grenades be used against Armiger and Shackled Artificia models? Liber Astartes specific. Dark Angel Warlord trait, Seneschal of the Keys. If the Warlord nominated the faction of the opposing primary detachment, and that detachment included a Clade operative from the Officio Assassinorum, would that model be unaffected or not by the decisive turn? Eschaton Imperative. Would a Dreadwing unit give the +1 to wound a unit if that unit contains models within dangerous terrain and models not in dangerous terrain? Lionel Johnson. If your force includes Lionel Johnson and your opponent takes the first player turn, does Lionel Johnson not gain the benefit of any Hexagrammaton unit subtype until your first turn? Would Lionel Johnson gain any benefit from the Deathwing unit subtype? Deathwing Companions. Would attacks from the Primarch models be allocated to a model chosen by the Deathwing Companions player, or by the Primarch's player? White Scars, the Legion Shashmir jet bike, or Samshir, however you pronounce it. Can a Legion Praetor or Centurion take both a Samshir jet bike and a boarding shield? Cyberhawks. How long does the benefit of a Cyberhawk last? Space Wolves and Bestial Savagery. If a Space Wolves infantry unit is joined by an independent character with the heavy unit subtype, would that unit gain +1 weapon skill on the charge? Would that unit be able to charge if the unit ran in the moving phase? Was then joined by the independent character afterwards in the same movement phase? No prey escapes the wolf. Can a unit using this reaction charge multiple units using a disorganized charge? Imperial Fist best defense. Can a unit using this reaction charge multiple units using a disorganized charge? Fafneron. If Fafneron is charged by multiple units, does each unit suffer the automatic hits from Executioner's tax? Sanguinius. Can Sanguinius reroll his failed invulnerable saves on a turn in which he makes a disorganized charge? Do Sanguinius's Great Wings count as a jump pack? Can Raldoron select a Warlord trait from the Blood Angel Warlord traits? Iron Hands, Gorgon Spike. When attacking with template weapons as part of this reaction, are the number of attacks generated by the Wall of Death rule doubled? If so, are the number of dice rolled to determine the number of hits doubled, or are the results of that roll doubled? Ultramarines, the boarding shields. If a model with the Agrarium pattern boarding shield is a model with a Agrarium pattern boarding shield allowed to claim the +1 attack bonus for having 2 close combat weapons, would an independent character who takes that boarding shield gain the heavy unit subtype? Would an independent character that cannot take a boarding shield be able to take that boarding shield? Salamanders, Blood of Fire. Would a unit with the Legion Astartes Salamanders benefit from this rule if it is joined by a model without that rule? Lever Hereticus. Emperor's Children, Rite of War, Marosaka. Skara. Would a detachment gain the +1 movement characteristic during a turn in which models were deployed from reserve as part of an area denial drop? Would a character from a Phoenix Terminator squad or a Palatine Blade squad be able to take a surgical augment if the unit has already been upgraded to have surgical augments using the option in their unit entry? If a unit is charged by another unit containing a model with Sonic Shriekers and a charged unit contains one Fearless model, would only the Fearless model be immune to the effects of the Sonic Shriekers, or would the rest of the charged unit be immune as well? Fulgrim. If the first reaction made by Fulgrim or a unit he has joined would already not count towards your reaction allotment, i.e. making the interception reaction with a model with an augury scanner in the unit, would the benefit of the Sire of the Emperor's Children Warlord trait affect the next reaction, or would the benefit be lost that turn? If Eidolon's rival model joins a unit, is that unit then considered to be a rival unit? If the opposing force doesn't contain any HQ or Primarch models, for example, a detachment of Divisio Tactica Questoris household, would Eidolon be able to nominate a rival model? If the first reaction made by Lord Commander Eidolon or a unit he has joined triggered by his rival unit would already not count towards your reaction allotment, making the interceptor reaction due to an augury scanner again, would the benefit of the Prideful Onslaught Warlord trait affect the next reaction, or would it be lost? Lucius. If your first reaction made by Lucius or a unit he has joined would already not count because of the augury scanner, would the benefit of the blade alone affect the next reaction, or would you lose it there too? Iron Warriors, Rack and Ruin. Does Rack and Ruin affect Armigers, and Shackled Artificia? Conrad Curs. How far would a unit including Conrad Curs be able to move while running? Would Curs add 12 to his movement instead of the lowest initiative in the unit? Angron. Can an army with Angron as its warlord only use the advanced core reaction in the movement phase, or does that restriction apply to all phases? Would this restriction lift if Angron was removed as a casualty? Thousand Suns. If a unit contained multiple models with the same Aetherfire weapon, would that unit need to make a psychic check for each individual weapon with the Achaean Force rule, or make one check and apply the result to all copies of the same weapon in that unit? If an independent character is upgraded to have an Aetherfire weapon, would they be allowed to activate the Achaean Force rule with their psychic check using their own leadership, or would with their own leadership characteristic? Would a Moritat have to make multiple psychic checks to use 2 Aetherfire pistols? Achaean Force. Would a weapon with the Achaean Force rule have the same effect on a demon or corrupted unit as a Force weapon? If a unit contained multiple models with the same Achaean Force weapon, would that unit need to make a psychic check for each individual weapon, or make one check and apply the result to all copies of the same weapon? Magnus the Red. How many psychic powers can Magnus use in a turn? Would he be able to use Telekine Dome, Telepathic Fuge, Biomantic Augmentation, as well as a Minor Arcana, all in one turn? Sons of Horus. When a model makes a leadership test for this warlord trait, what happens if the warlord is reduced to 0 runes in the middle of a wound pool? Would excess wounds be lost? Then, if the warlord passes the leadership test, it gains D3 wounds, or would the warlord test be done then you continue saving against the wound pool? Black Reaving. Would a unit who gains the Rage special rule get Rage 2 special rule if it charges an enemy unit that is not locked in combat and has not previously been the target of a charge in another phase, if a different unit targets that enemy with a charge later in the same charge phase? Loken. When does Loken make a leadership test for this Warlord trait? What happens if Loken is reduced to 0 wounds in the middle of a wound pool? The excess wounds lost, then he passes the leadership test, he gains 3, or D3, or would he test in the middle of the wound pool and then continue saving against the remaining wound pool? Alpha Legion. If the first reaction made by a Warlord or a unit he has joined would not already count, i.e. the Interceptor, Augury Scanner, would the effects of Mobius configuration affect the next reaction, or would it be lost? Alfarius, Exodus, and Armless Dynat. Is the omission of the Traitor special rule for Alfarius, Exodus, and Armless Dynat intended? Who wants to go next?
I'll grab it again here.
All right.
Regarding Liber Mechanicum, Divisio Tactica Mechanicum. Would a primary detachment of Mechanicum be able to take a Lord of War from a different Divisio Tactica, since the Lord of War optional detachment isn't required to have a different faction from the primary detachment? Scornful Fire. Would a super heavy vehicle, knight, or titan be eligible to make a shooting attack while within 12 inches of a Mechanicum independent character using Scornful Fire if the reaction was not triggered by a model they would normally not be allowed to react to? Knight Moirax Talon. Would a Knight Moirax Talon be eligible to be taken in Divisio Tactica Questoris Household Detachments? Cyberthurgy. Animatus Integro. Animatus Integro. Would this cyberthurgic right affect Armiger or Shackled Artificia? Ephemera Perfida. What special rules would affect an enemy unit being controlled by the Mechanicum player using the cyberthurgic right? Would it benefit from rules that affect the owning player's detachment or special rules of other models in that detachment? Would the target of Ephemera Perfida be considered a friendly unit while controlled by the Mechanicum? Would different factions of targets gain different benefits based on allies in the Age of Darkness table? Does the cyberthurgic right affect Armiger or Shackled Artificia models? Portafractus. Would this right affect flyer transports currently hovering? Archimandrite, Master Technomancer. Would this rule affect Armiger or Shackled Artificia models? Lacrimarta. Opus Viscera. Would an infantry unit be able to gain the effects of Opus Viscera more than once per turn if it were applied by different models with Battlesmith? Would a model with Battlesmith be able to affect its own unit with Opus Viscera? Datagen. Would attacks made with a Datagen be able to wound an Armiger or Shackled Artificia? Detonation. Would attacks made with a detonation weapon affect Armigers or Shackled Artificia? Disruption. Would these affect an Armiger or Shackled Artificia? Grusso Protocol. If a player had more than one reaction in the assault phase, would multiple units be able to react to a single charge with a combination of the Grusso Protocol reaction and Overwatch and or Hold the Line? Ornatus Transport Bay. Can a model with this special rule transport Armigers? Sonic Wave. If a weapon with this rule hits a Knight, Titan, Super Heavy, Building, or Fortification, would the attack be Strength 10 when wounding just those model types, or all models hit by the weapon? Regarding Liber Imperium. Legio Custodes. When rolling to hit when engaged with a Nemesis unit, what rolls would be considered better than a 4+? This is probably most specifically, do you go unmodified rolls? So let's say somehow you're playing an event and somebody has like Traitor Lehman Russ. If you roll a 4 on the die and Lehman Russ has his Frost Armor, is that 4 a 4+, or is that 4 not a 4+ because of Lehman Russ's special rule? Maiden of Blood. Would the wounds inflicted against the Warlord's unit activate the Warlord trait count toward combat resolution? Janisha Kroll, the Onyx Cloak. Would a barrage weapon fired at Janisha Kroll still be treated as out of line of sight if she were in another unit? Silent Judge. Do the benefits of the Distort Field and Spectra Cloak on the Silent Judge stack? Would a unit containing a Silent Judge be treated as 12 inches further away? Carries Pattern Acquisitor. What benefit does having a twin-linked multi-melta provide when a multi-melta is already twin-linked? Anathema subtype.
That one right there also should apply to the Storm Eagle, because it has two multi-meltas, not a single twin-linked one. Sorry, you shouldn't have that apply because it's got two multi-meltas right now.
The nose weapon.
Yeah.
Anathema subtype. Under the second bullet point, wounds from a psychic weapon allocated to a model with the anathema subtype automatically fail to wound. How is this resolved against a unit that contains models with the anathema subtype and units without the subtype? Would successful wounds allocated to the anathema model retroactively fail? If the attacking unit had a rule that allowed the opposing player to allocate the wounds, such as Sniper or Primarch, would those wounds be able to allocated to non-anathema models and affect the unit as normal? Would a unit with the inexorable special rule be affected by the leadership penalty from anathema?
Yes, big boy Cabanda.
Yep, unit rules for Cabanda. Is Cabanda considered to be from the Demons of the Ruinstorm faction? If so, would that faction be considered, what would that faction be considered for the purposes of allies in the Age of Darkness? Should Cabanda have the Demon subtype? One of Cabanda's special rules is Herald of Bloodshed. What benefits does this grant? Cabanda's rules frequently reference the Crimson Fury Etheric Dominion and potential benefits it may grant, such as Rampage D3. How should this be resolved until Etheric Dominions are released? Does a model equipped with Melta Bombs and a one-handed close combat weapon gain an extra attack due to having the Melta Bomb? If all models in an enemy unit are destroyed by Sons of Horus Death Dealer, does the eliminated unit still get to fire? You know, it's not until we've gone through this whole 11-page document that it stands out to me how many of these questions really would not have to exist through better templating. And what's probably more egregious to me is that templating existed last edition. That's not to say last edition was faultless. We had a way bigger FAQ document, I feel like, last edition than what we did this edition. But it's the frustration over the little things that should have been able to have been gotten right that aren't, that keep us here, that leave me frustrated with the system.
I can understand that. Shall we go on with the ones from the Discord channel or the ones from the Facebook group next?
I will leave that to your dealer's choice.
Let me bring up the Facebook.
I have Facebook pulled up right now.
All right, Jack, tell us the Facebook.
See here. Can Mind Song Blades be cast inside of a transport? Can an Esoterrorist summon demon during Overwatch? If yes, can a summon unit block the charge? Can a Major Prime use Opus
Viscera
section in a Sworn Brothers allied detachment of Astartes? Allowed Cataphractor Terminators to move twice and still charge? Can you direct precision shots in and out of a challenge? Does the Crimin's Path in Norse first room cause their first unsaved wound? See here. Do Iron Warrior templates counts as +1 strength if they scatter onto infantry units when the original target is a vehicle, automato, of Dreadnought? Do flare shields reduce the strength of templates, blast weapons by 2 when a temp blast plate weapon is shot into the front arch, since blast weapons are resolved against side armors? See here. When a unit gains +1 wound, can the wound be can they wound a target they otherwise could not wound, i.e. strength 4 versus toughness 8 with +1 to wound? See here, going through here, trying to make sure we don't double stack what we have already had. Do augury scanners and helical targeting rays count as reactions during intercept in the movement phase? Can they still be used if the max number of reactions have been made prior to activation of the interception reaction, i.e., 3 reactions in the movement phase have already been completed before the intercept reactions are made? See here.
This one's a good one. Can a tank shock on the turn it infiltrates and or makes a scout move?
Mm-hmm. At what speed do deep striking units arrive? How do units disembarking from a deep striking transport? See here. Somebody mentioned the whole entire Storm Eagle with the Melta. Cavalry and dreadnoughts need a bulky rating for roles such as Rampage or Talent to Murder. See here.
Are armigers dreadnoughts or automata?
Yeah.
Or neither?
That's more of an errata. Did anyone bring up barrage and how those work on buildings?
No.
I will write those.
Okay. Let's see here. I think that's all the ones we have from Facebook. Am I wrong?
That wasn't doubled over.
Sounds like we head to the Discord now.
Yep.
Actually, we could pause here and wait for John to insert his question regarding barrage and structures.
Sounds good. John, if you want to stick that in the big Google Doc, we can go with that and send it off as the whole. These are our questions.
Sure. There's another one I wanted to reference really quick. I think direct fire is removed from the book, even though it's mentioned.
Well, while you're double checking, shall we read the ones from the Discord so far?
Yes, let's.
I love how enthusiastic you sound. Oh, declaring challenges. Are they declared one time per turn or once per unit in combat? Should Death Storm drop pods be included in Drop Pod Assault, the Right of War, or other rights of war that specify drop pods? This one's more of an errata one. Should Dreadclaws have assault vehicle? Does the Imperial Fist Decurion, when making a shooting attack as part of a return fire reaction, get to fire at a separate unit besides the one that initiated the shooting attack? Do command squads gain deep strike if the commander they join has deep strike / outflank or subterranean assault? Does an Imperial Fist command squad need to pay points to deep strike if the Praetor has already paid to deep strike? Can an Imperial Fist command squad empower armor deep strike? Does the Imperial Fist bolter and autocannon +1 affect the ballistic skill modifier of blast weapons with the autocannon description? Do the Dark Angels Knight Cenobium follow wound allocation rules as a unit or follow the character rules?
Same thing could be said for Ultramarines.
Yep. Specifically the
Caesarians.
Is the Praetorian in either Terminator type armor types supposed to have the option to buy a mastercrafted weapon for 10 points? And that looks like all we have from our Discord. John?
Yeah, so this one kind of goes back to some of the issues that we run into before with the translation from 1.0 to 2.0 and the fact that barrages and all templates really don't say that they hit a single floor of a building. So the question becomes, if firing a template at a template / barrage / small blast, large blast, blast in general, how many models are hit? Because it says to reference all models under the template. And so do you create a magical cylinder of death that hits floors 1 through X, or do you only hit the specific floor that the models you can see under the template?
Or do you have to declare what floor?
Yep.
What was the other one you were thinking of?
The other one I'm looking up right now was if indirect fire weapons could still fire directly with no minimum range. There was references to that in a couple of places, but I think that it's been removed entirely.
One question I have for the world leaders, how does Galen Serlak's rules work with Inducti? Because he can only change or alter the Despoiler squads, and the Despoiler squads can be the Inducti. Do the two rules work together, or do they not work at all? Anyone else have ones that they've come up with?
I think any that I had would have ended up passed along through my locals.
Yeah, I'm checking my private messages now, and I don't see any additional ones that were passed on to me.
Yeah, the ones I had that were passed on to me, I had Blake post on our Facebook page.
So here's a couple that I've got kind of backwards referencing from other documents. Explosions from vehicles, dreadnoughts, automata, etc., are they treated as blasts or just shooting attacks? It kind of references both back and forth, so it's a little fuzzy. If an area of dangerous terrain is created by multiple markers of the same type placed on top of each other, do you take multiple dangerous terrain tests?
Escalation or Escalon are imperative.
Yeah, that combined with a grav gun,
Yeah.
it's a little wonky.
Jack, you got any? You haven't seen answered yet, or haven't seen asked yet?
No, reading over everything has now made me depressed.
I'm sorry.
I need a drink.
Sorry about that question.
No. See, to me, like you're just giving away like how much of an underachiever you are, Jack. I had depression before we showed up, so.
Well,
So I think our intention is to release this questionnaire document into the wild and have members of the cast send it off via email somewhere around, what was it, the 10th of December or so we were thinking originally? Before Christmas. Basically a week after this episode drops,
Yep.
we're going to send this
Make
episode
a
or send these questions
concerted
out.
push.
Yep.
Please, respectfully reach out to Games Workshop.
don't go
we will-
full Cartman on them.
We will post a direct copy of all these questions in a Google document, in our Facebook, in our Discord, for anybody to copy and send off to GW. We will also include in the topic or in the top of that document the email address that it should be sent to.
And
We
please don't send it, hey, face.
Yeah. Be polite in your email.
Yeah.
Be professional in your email you send. And when you send it, please let us know you sent it. We will happily get a list of names together and shout you out saying thank you for sending this list of questions as a FAQ or a request for a FAQ.
I'll tell you what, I'll one up that. Everyone who sends it, we'll make a list of it, and then I will give a prize to the person that we randomly pick from that.
There we go. So you'll get shout out and you'll get a prize if you send it off.
We'll randomly pick someone, and I will make sure that it's not going to be something crappy. It'll be something decent. I haven't figured it out yet, but I will definitely make sure that it gets out to the person that we randomly select.
Sounds good to me.
And it should be like to Dear Forge World or Dear Games Workshop.
Because
Yes.
Forge World doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and make sure it's James, not James. Put that hard G on there.
Yeah.
Hey, it's been brought to my attention that you would like some feedback on the gaming system of Horus Heresy 2.0. So here are my feedbacks to you. That in
Whatever.
Tater Chip.
If you have other questions that you listeners or viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube, would like to ask or would like to be included when you send off your email, or if you'd like us to include it in the document that we're all going to send off and endorse, please get hold of us. Put it in the in our Facebook group. Put it as a question on our YouTube clip or our YouTube video. Mention it in the FAQ channel on our Discord. Please let us know so we can add it. And if you don't let us know and you don't want us to know it, attach it to your email that you send off to them. Please, any questions that we can possibly get answered, we would love to have answered. We would love to have an updated FAQ with our questions resolved.
And you said that the plan is to send it out on the 10th, I believe.
Well,
you said 10th of December.
We're going to give it basically 7 days or 8 days after this episode drops.
Gotcha.
So, say this episode drops on December the 1st. Or
Yep.
say this drops on November the... how many days are November? Then it drops on November the 30th. We will send this out then on December the 7th. We want clarity, please. And Games Workshop, if you are listening, James Workshop specifically, if he is listening, please answer our questions. We just want to make the game more fun for everybody and more inclusive with these questions being answered. Anybody else got anything we should discuss at this point? Or are we good?
So there's a couple more I came across.
Go ahead.
if you're armed with 2 lightning claws and another specialist weapon, how many attacks do you get if you choose to fight with the other special weapon? How fast are deep striking transport assault vehicles considered to have moved when they deep strike? And then obviously the Mindsong Blades kind of builds off another one of what order do deep strike, psychic powers, etc. happen in the turn. So, can you deep strike and then cast a psychic power, or can you cast a psychic power if you started the turn in a vehicle? Since all these things take place at the beginning of the movement phase.
Another good one there would be if you're deep striking in the vehicle and then coming out, when would you do your psychic power, before or after the interceptor?
In the Blood Feud mission, this is a bit of an errata, but how many victory points are Armigers, Knights, super heavy vehicles worth? They're completely missed.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else that we're missing at the moment. I'm sure we will miss several things that people will bring to us or that we will ourselves discover later. But for now, I think that's all we've got for tonight.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Dear James Workshop. Games Workshop. Jesus. I hope all is well. It's been brought up that you would like some feedback on your game system of Horse Heresy 2.0. Here are some things that I came across with games I've played. But to start off, here's a picture of my army. Because they always like pictures of armies.
I mean, sure.
They do. I mean, butter them up, man. Apparently they don't like cake, though.
No, do not send this on a cake. Send this via email, telegraph, fax, text message if you have a text message app for all of GW. Carrier pigeon, but just not on cake. Cake bad. They will eat it without asking your questions.
All right. Any last notes before we wind this down?
I'll go with one. I hope GW actually listens to us. I hope they actually will answer these questions. I'm not certain they will, but I'm very hopeful, especially given the fact that they have actually been asking and replying the whole give us a quick email at heresyfaq@gwplc.com to multiple people when people now have been hitting up about facts. So let's hope.
Yeah, and I think that underscores the reason why we're here. We all have about as vested an interest as you can have in trying to make sure that Games Workshop makes the best product they can make, because we consume it.
Yeah, we do.
And so even though this may sound a little odd if some of you are new to the game, if the concept or the idea of a FAQ has never been presented or available or discussed for you before, we're not nagging on the game. We're not saying that it's not a good game. We're just saying we know that there is a better game in here and we want to help get there. So, listeners, I have been Jacob, and on this, the 63rd episode of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast, I've been joined by
Duncan,
Jack,
Jamie,
And John.
And thank you so much for joining us, listeners. Stay accountable to your hobby and to your buddies, and we'll see you here next time.